Philippians 3:13, he that is in you is stronger than he that is in the world. John 4:4, ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The race is not given to the swift, nor to the strong, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. The power to keep going. The power to keep going. You know, this sermon idea does not come today with a lot of background, a lot of scriptural searching, a lot of meditation. It is something that I decided on yesterday, late in the day, and I thought I'd just talk about it without being so academic, and just reflect on some of the things that I have noticed as I have aged. But when you grow older, you get a chance to see some things that you saw when you were younger, and you look at them again when you're older, and you can see some things in them when you're older that you did not see when you were younger. Now, I don't know if that makes any sense. But if you just turned 60, it makes a little bit more sense than it did when you were 50. And for those who have turned 70, it makes even a little bit more sense. Well, one of the things about that is that I have been around long enough to see folks who've been around even longer. And I've also seen folks fall by the wayside. I've seen people who started out in, a swift gait and faded in time and are no longer productive. I have seen people who are nominated in their certain situations who are going to be the ones that were going to be successful, and they did not become nearly as successful as the folk thought they would. I've seen situations where folks were crushed by things that other people handled pretty well. And one of the things that I have seen is the kind of things that separate groups, that make the difference between the folks on this side and the folks on that side. And one of the things that I have seen about some folks that kind of distinguish them from other folks is that their ability to keep going. Their ability to keep going. I was with a lady this past weekend, Josephine Richmond, who was back in Fulton for the family reunion. And, she lost all of her children. She's outlived all of them. And you can see her sometimes, and she's 92 years old. And just the mind is alert and it's just wonderful. And you ask her, what is it? And just keep going. To keep going. And I think more than anything else, this ability to keep going is what's so important to us. Because you see, things happen in this world. They happen to good people and bad people people, and sometimes it seems that things happen where we bring a lot of stuff on ourselves, and then a lot of things happen to us that we didn't do anything to cause, and you have all this whole big ball of stuff that happened to us, stuff that Shakespeare said that flesh is heir to, the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. And what is the difference between those folks who survive, those folks who thrive, those folks who make it, and those who don't? Is their ability to keep going. You know, I grew up, I saw something on the TV the other night, and the only TV that I watch is the educational channel, PBS. And it had this thing on there with these two families. And it was about the terrible imbalance of wealth in this country, and how hard some people have to work, ordinary people have to work. And they had this white couple and a black couple. And it was almost painful, because I've been talking about this for years, but it's almost painful to watch, because I don't think that leadership in this country really understands what families go through and how difficult it is for folks to achieve what we used to call the American dream. And this documentary, this program, Frontline, I think it was called, is about these two families. And it was absolutely amazing. It was painful to watch almost, to see how these people had to struggle. And they watched them over a period of about 25 or 30 years maybe. It was a long period of time. Bill Moyer started this when he was a young person, and he's now 79 years old. And he started that documentary years ago, and show these people. And this man, and this couple at the end, this one couple, they got divorced because they just got divorced. They went through so much stuff. And then this other couple, a black couple. This man had so many different jobs. He had done all kinds of things. Then he was a minister. He became a minister. And toward the end, they asked him, "What was it? What kept you all?" And they were together and happy, reared their children. And they said, "What happened to you all? How did you do this?" And they said, "We just kept going." Just kept going. Sometimes you can't even see your way, and you don't know what tomorrow is going to look like or be like. You just keep going. So we have this power in us, you know. And I grew up around folks. Some people say, "Well, talk about growing up in Mississippi." I can't help it. I grew up in Mississippi, and I'm proud of the fact that I grew up in Mississippi. I'm proud of the fact that I grew up around black people, and I grew up around a lot of white people too. But I'm glad that I got a chance to see what I saw. I'm glad that I saw folks who worked as sharecroppers and worked all year, and at the end of the sharecropping period, at the end of the year, the harvest time, their harvesting was in somebody else's hands, and somebody else was in charge of the money. And these people were sometimes told that they didn't make anything. And in fact, sometimes they were told that they lost money. And sometimes after being told this, some of them said they were not going to farm anymore. They just couldn't do it. But they looked around at their children and thought, well, I must do something to make life or help make life better for them. So in the winter, when they had settled on this notion that they would never farm again, they wouldn't go back to that terrible disappointing crop that they had spent so much time the previous year and yielded nothing. They would not go back to that, but Christmas would come, and they would bake their 5 and 6 layer cakes and buy fruit and have a good time, and friends would come down from Chicago and Detroit, and they would just revel in happiness, and you wouldn't even know they were as poor as they were. And then January would come, and February would come. And then the spring would come, and the birds would sing, and the ice would freeze, and the waters would flow, and the hope would return, and they would say, I'm going back again. I'm going to keep going. Maybe this year the crop will be better. Maybe this year the yield will be greater. Maybe this year I can put aside a few more dollars for the child's education, and maybe in a few years they will lift us out of this situation. You know, Marcellus Roberts experienced. They saw this kind of thing. Down, and many of you who are of certain age saw this kind of thing down south, and you saw people who kept going. There's this poem that says, if you strike a thorn, a rose, keep going. If it hails or if it snows, keep it going. Tain't no use to sit and whine when the fish ain't on your line. Bait your hook and keep a trying. Keep a going. When the weather kills your crop, keep a going. Though 'tis work to reach the top, keep a going. Suppose you're out of every dime. Getting broke ain't no crime. Tell the world you're feeling prime. Keep it going. When it looks like all is up, keep it going. Drain the sweetness from the cup. Keep it going. See the wild birds on the wing. Hear the bells that sweetly ring. When you feel like singing, sing. Keep it going. As Christians, we have this responsibility to ourselves and to our God and to the rest of the people who are watching us to keep going. And we have in us the power to do that. And we don't always know how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, but we're going to receive that boost that's necessary to keep it going. You know, Mahalia Jackson sang this song, I look back and wonder how I got over. And I don't think that Mahalia Jackson means that in this song. I don't think she means, I look back and wonder how I got over. I think she probably means, I look back in wonder. Because I think that Mahalia Jackson knew how she got over. She knew how she got over. She knew that you couldn't sing the other songs that she sang with meaning and wonder how you got over. She knew how I got over. She just looked back with all kind of mystery about how God did it. She's looking back and trying to figure out how did God or when did God put into place the things that work so well for me. It's easier to look back and see what God has done than it is to look out and see what God is doing. And sometimes when you look back, you see it. Some things happen to you, and you cannot imagine how you're going to overcome that. You cannot imagine how God is going to work that out. You cannot imagine how that broken heart of yours will ever come back together, and you'll ever smile again. But he will. And there is evidence all around that he will. So Paul says to the Philippians, and John repeats his statement, that he that is in you is stronger than he that is in the world. The power that you have in you is stronger than all of these forces that are working against you. The power that you have in you is stronger than any broken heart situation that comes upon you. The power that is in you is stronger than any bad condition you get yourself into. The power that is in you is stronger than any physical condition that comes upon you. The power that is in you is the power of Jesus. And it is stronger than anything else. People wonder how black people did some of the things that they did in this country when so many forces working against them. I know folks, and you know, it's interesting. I work with all kinds of people, and I've worked with folks who had very few resources, and you'd wonder how they did some of the things that they did. And some of these people have sent 3 or 4 children to college, and some of them had more than one child in college at the same time, and they didn't know at sometimes where their next meal was coming from. They didn't know exactly. They knew where it was coming from. They knew it was coming from God, but they didn't know exactly whose hand God was going to deliver it in. And they have done those things. And you say, well, how did they do that? How did they do that? That was a woman once told me that she took care of her sick friend. Because her friend wanted to die at home. She had some kind of cancer, and she wanted to die at home. Well, she took care of her. And as she worked, she was a teacher, and as she worked, she took care of this woman. And she was just telling me, we were just having a conversation at lunchtime, and she told me that some mornings she would be so tired that she would have to find the vein when her friend was actually near death, and she had to give her shots at something. And she said that she would be so tired, and she would do that and go to work and then come back and start that process all over and take care of her sick friend until she died. And then she said to me, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I'm glad I did. That it has been one of the richest experiences in my life. And I thought about what the black folk used to say. I wouldn't take nothing for my journey now. So I just wanted to without being all that academic and without quoting a lot of scriptures and philosophers, without quoting poetry, even though I could think of a few poems that could go here. Just talk about this thing that Christians have. And they don't, sometimes they don't even know they have it. Because they'll look at situations and say, I can't do that. And all the time, they're doing it. Oh, I can't get through another day. And the next thing you know, it's tomorrow. That I can't take this. I can't make this work. And the next thing you know, they've done another day. And it gets closer and closer. You know, when I was teaching some old silly kids, once they got the time they were most likely to drop out of school was in the 9th grade. because it was such a long distance to the graduation line. Then they get into the 10th grade. And some of them still dropped out. But when you get to the 11th grade, I'd always remind them, oh, it's not as far as it was. Oh, you wouldn't get this close and turn back now. You can see victory. You can see the goal in mind. At this point, you can see that the hassle that the tassel is worth the hassle. Keep going. You have the power to keep going. And sometimes we need an idea. We need somebody encouraging us. But at the end, we need Jesus inside of us. And Jesus says to us that he's there. And John says to us that Jesus is there. Paul says to us that Jesus is there. And he says that because Jesus is there, the thing that you have in you is more powerful than anything that anybody has against you. So we may go through things and are going through things. But with God's word and encouragement from God's people, and even from the presence of God himself, we have the power to keep going. You know, when Martin Luther King was leading black people on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, they had attempted to march across the bridge once and go to Selma. And they had been beaten and had dogs sick on them and fire hoses unleashed or turned on them. And it was a terrible brutality leashed out against them. But they insisted on marching, and they got together a second time to march. And they started marching, and they saw the highway patrolmen take their positions. They saw the firemen take their positions with their fire hoses ready. They saw the policemen take their positions with their dogs on their leashes, growling probably. And they told these people to stop. And Martin said, we're going to march. And they started marching. And someone, after they went on these miserable and told the people to stop, somebody turned to Martin King and said, what are we going to do? And he said, pray and keep walking. When troubles come and the people say to you, what are you going to do? You say, pray and keep walking.